Hi, welcome back to Christine's Home Affairs. Over the past couple of weeks I've done a few videos with a small pouch, a zippered pocket, a welt pocket and a secret pocket. Today we're going to incorporate all of those features into the one bag. So we're going to make a nice big bag that will be reversible, and it's going to have a multitude of pockets and a little storage caddy. Hang around and I'll show you how we go and put all of this together. All right, here is what we need. I have a 1" or 25mm swivel clip or lobster clip, 2 scraps of fabric. These can be any scrap of fabric you like. It's really just so that I can actually have a little bit of extra stability in the side seam of the fabric when we put this clip in. So it's just any scraps of fabric. I've got 8" by 12" for the hidden welt pocket, a 12" zip, and I'm just using a regular dress zip today. Then I've got a piece of fabric that is 14" wide by 22" long. This is going to be for the zippered pocket, and you want to stabilize this. I'm using a regular dressmaker's interfacing. And for our lining, we have 18" by 38". So just one continuous piece, 18 by 38. It's best to have a non-directional fabric. And for the main fabric, we also want a non-directional fabric, and this is 18" wide by 40" long. Oh, and we need some handles. For the handles, I'm going to use the 1" wide strapping that I use. This is a really heavy duty polypropylene webbing. It's just so much quicker to use than it is to make handles. If you want to make your own handles, then cut a strip of fabric that is 4" wide by the width of your fabric, which is usually 44 inches. So we want to have a 44" strapping, or just a piece of fabric 4" wide by 44 inches long. And if you're using quilting fabric, then you'll probably want to stabilize your handles with batting or palin, something with a bit of body. Let's get started. We'll set everything aside, and for the moment we'll just take our hidden pocket piece. This is the 8" by 12". On the wrong side of your fabric, we're going to measure 1" in from the side edge, and we'll do that on both sides. And then we're going to measure 1" down from the top. So we're going to draw a line from those 2 marks that we've just made, and then we'll draw another line 1" further down, and you can connect the end lines. We've got a 1" opening in here. We're going to draw a line straight down the center, and then we'll do a couple of diagonal lines coming from the corner out, and same at the other end. Take your other pocket piece. This is the 14" by 22". From one top edge, we're going to measure 2.5 inches. You can actually put this in any position you like. It's a secret pocket or a hidden pocket behind a zippered pocket, and this is just a guideline that we're drawing now. There's the center of my fabric here, and we're going to place this piece right on that drawn line. As I said, it's only a guideline, so that line is not going to be stitched or used for anything. It's merely to position this piece of fabric. With the 2 pocket pieces pinned in place, I'll start stitching around about here, go all the way along to the end, come down, come back around, up, and meet up with the other one, back stitch there, and then we can come back, give it a press and cut it, and all of that jazz. So back stitch at the beginning and the end. When you get to corners, stop with the needle down and then just pivot your work and continue on. Before we cut this open, I'm just going to press the edges. It'll help make the fabric sit better when we turn it through. So fold the edges in and just press along that stitching line. Open up that cutting line. Now we're going to snip to the corner, but not through the stitching line, and then we can bring the fabric through to the other side. Try not to have any little pinches in the corner. If you do, then go back and snip really close to the corners without going through your thread. Sometimes if you haven't trimmed close enough to your stitching line, it's going to be very pinched in the corner. With the little pocket facing you, measure down 1" from the opening. You don't even need to measure. You can just go and pinch your fabric together, fold it up, press a line right across and bring that up to the top section just here, but don't bring it beyond it. I'm just going to press this down because it wants to stick up. Bring that up to the edge, press it, turn your fabric around to the other side, and you can see we've got that little pocket just there. I don't want to have too much of a gap in here, so I'm going to go back to the iron and I'll just bring this up just a little bit. The idea here is to make a pocket that isn't seen by anybody else. Though I've gone and used a bright yellow fabric against a red fabric, so this is certainly not going to be an inconspicuous pocket. But if you want to have a secret pocket in this bag, then you'll need to use the same fabric as you do on the outside. But this is more of a fun pocket for me today. So there we go. Now we can take this back to the machine, and I'm going to do a top stitch along the side edge, along the bottom, and along the side edge here again. This section here needs to be allowed to be left open. If you want to, you can go and do a top stitch along this top section as well. I do like to do that. I like to have my top stitching all the way around, but you don't have to do that at the top if you don't want to. So top stitch all the way around. But when you are doing the top section, make sure that your little pocket flap here is well out of the way of your stitching, because we don't want to close that up. This is such a cute little pocket, I almost don't want it to be concealed. So it's actually going to be hidden away like that. Okay, turn it around the wrong way, bring the raw edge up from the bottom to the top there, and pin the edges. We want to pin just the edges of the yellow pocket, not the red pocket. Turn that back the right way, and we're going to go and stitch the pocket closed along the short edge, along the top edge, and along this short edge again. So I like to stitch from the top so that I can make sure that I don't accidentally stitch the other pocket. Back stitch at the beginning and the end. Okay, that is your hidden welt pocket finished. Now, if you didn't want to put a hidden pocket into your zipper pocket, you can avoid this step completely. So you can start by doing the next. Now we're going to work on the zipper pocket, and I'm going to measure 1 inch in from the side edge like I did before. We're working with the opposite end of our pocket now. So I've got the pocket piece, the interfacing, the hidden pocket at that end, and this is the end where we're going to put the zipper. So I've just marked some lines 1 inch in from the outside edges, and then I'm going to mark 1 inch from the top. And then I'm going to mark from this line, I'm making a 5/8 inch line, and our zipper will be placed inside here. We want to mark a line right in the center of that. Then you just want to mark a couple of diagonal lines, 1 centimeter or 3/8 of an inch from the outside edge. Take your lining piece. This is the label that I'm having on the inside of my bag. I'm going to have my zippered pocket sitting up just above the label. I'm going to mark 2 inches from the top edge, and again this is just a guideline, and I'll mark the center of the fabric. I'll mark the center of this fabric as well. So my lining fabric, I've got a 2 inch line from the top, and then I've just marked the center line. Take your pocket fabric, and we don't want this side, we want this side with the drawn lines on it, and we'll line that up with this guideline just here. Pin that in place. We'll go to the machine, and we're going to stitch the outside rectangle all the way around. Start sewing anywhere along that line. And before I cut this open, I will just go and press this again like I did before. Now I'm going to just cut this open right down the very center here, and then I'll snip into the corners. Then turn the whole lot through to the wrong side of your lining fabric, and press it again until everything sits nice and flat. When you've got everything sitting nice and flat and it's beautifully pressed, I love this fabric. Take your zip, and this is a 12-inch opening, so I've got a 12-inch zip. And what I'm going to do before I do anything is just stitch this closed on the wrong side of the metal bar. It's not going to go anywhere, but I'm just so used to doing this from the continuous zips that I usually use it. I'm going to stitch straight across here. At this end here, I'm going to open it out a little bit. I will also stitch this closed at the very top edge as well. I'll go and do that now. I've stitched the ends closed on the zip, and I've got some double-sided tape, and I'm just going to run that along the edge here of the inside part of the pocket. I prefer to use double-sided tape to pins because pins distort the fabric and it just makes the whole job a lot easier. Now take your zipper with the slider opening from the left, place that underneath this opening, and we want to line the zip up nice and evenly along that opening. I've got the metal bar on the side edge here and the metal staples on this side. They're going to be sitting in the visible area of the opening. So center that, line it up on the side there, and then start lining up one edge of your tape so that it's nice and centered. And using the double-sided tape, if it's not quite right, you can just peel it back and try again. I'm ready now to go and stitch the zip down all the way around. Now when you're sewing this, because we have metal bars on the end here, we just want to be careful. If you haven't quite cut your rectangle out long enough and your metal is sticking out underneath the fabric, stitch a little bit further away from the fabric. You just want to make sure there's plenty of clearance between the metal bar at the end there and those little metal staples at this end. So I think I've under measured my little edges here. I'm going to, when I top stitch, just top stitch a little bit further out on the outside edges, but along these two edges everything will be fine. At the end I'm going to back stitch again. Move your zipper if it's in the way. Now that the zip's in, turn this the wrong way around and we can take the other end of our pocket and bring that up to the top. Press it at the bottom there, flip it the right way around and just bring these edges in, and we can pin the sides and the top. We folded the pocket piece together, pinned it along the side and along the top edge. I've just brought these side edges in just like we did with the welt pocket earlier. We're going to stitch all the way along here, along the top and back down again, just back stitch at the beginning and the end here. Okay, our pockets are completely done. Open up your zip, and if you have a look inside here, there's our secret pocket. So you've got a very deep pocket here to put all sorts of goodies, but then you've got a little pocket on the inside there where you can store some extra cash or jewels or your credit cards, and that hides in between the lining, your pocket and the outer part of your bag. I have done a separate video for this whole procedure. You can apply the same process to any size bag that you like. Let's go and start doing the rest of the bag. Now, this being the lining, we might as well stitch the lining closed. Take the lining and place it right side together. So we've got our pocket on one side, bring the short edges of the lining together. The edges have been clipped together along the side seam. I've got the bottom along here. From the top, we're going to measure 8 inches down. So I've measured 8 inches from the top down to here, and what I want to do is insert a swivel clip to the inside of the lining. I've taken a 2.5 inch piece of strapping, or you can just take a piece of fabric and fold it in half a couple of times and then have a 2.5 inch length. Place it over your clip and then stitch the edges closed. Put your swivel on the inside, and remember those scraps of fabric that I mentioned earlier. Because there's not much weight to the lining fabric, I'm just going to place these right on the very edge here. And if I turn that around, I'll do the same for this side. So what I've done on the side edge here is just popped a piece of fabric as an extra support for the strapping that I'm putting down here. I don't want my lining to tear. So I've done that on both sides, just a piece of scrap fabric, and then I've got my strapping on the inside. And the swivel clip is on the inside and well out of the way. We're going to go to the machine now, stitch straight down both long edges, and just make sure when you're sewing that that metal clip is out of the way of your sewing area. In this section here, I will actually go forward, back and forward again, and then go on back down to the end. Starting at the top, just do a 1/4 inch seam allowance all the way. I'm now going to mark a 3 inch boxed corner on the bottom of my bag. So I have little plastic templates that I cut out, and if I need different sizes, I'll use those. So you can either go and measure 3 inches across there and 3 inches down, or just use some kind of a guide. I've got my stitching line along the side here. I'm going to line up my template along the edge of the stitching line and just mark a square like that, and on this side as well, and flip it over, and we'll do the same on this side. You can cut these corners out if you want to. I usually just like to leave them whole. Then grab one side of your lining and the other side and pinch it out and match up the corners from the squares that you've just drawn. So you'll have a straight line going across here and a straight line across on the other side. That's going to be your stitching line, and I will let my seam go toward me as I'm sewing. So as I take this to the machine, I'll be stitching down here. This seam here, I will make that point in my direction. And the same for the other side. I'll have the seam also pointing in my direction. So we'll take that to the machine, stitch straight along there and here. Before we do that, we'll start preparing our main fabric as well. Now, with the main fabric piece, what I've done is gone and pressed the top edge of the fabric at both ends over by 1 inch. So just fold it over 1 inch, give it a press, just set a really nice crease there. We'll need these creases for later on. I folded the fabric in half, short edges together, and just made a little mark there. We've got 18 inches wide. The center position is at 9 inches, and I'm going to measure 4.5 inches from the center, so it's the halfway point, and I'll do the same on the other side. So we've got the center and 4.5 inches, and bring the other end up as well. Line up those edges, transfer the markings. So top edge here we've got center point and 4.5 inches, and the top edge here we've got center and 4.5 inches. Take your handle fabric and place that on the inside. We don't want to center our fabric or have it on that side. We actually want it in between the center and that line that we've just drawn. Keep the handle nice and straight as you come around, and do the same thing. So the handle is going to sit on the inside of that marking. And we'll do the same for the other side of the fabric. Take the other handle, and I'm going to quickly take this to the machine and just stitch those edges. Okay, I've just secured the handles onto the very top edge of the fabric at both ends, and they will be secured properly later on. Take your main fabric and place it right side together and line up the side seams. The side seams are clipped together. I'm going to now go and stitch all the way down the side. And I have a 1/4 inch seam allowance again. Throughout the entire project, it's a 1/4 inch seam. And we'll backstitch at the beginning. And because I'm using upholstery fabric today, I'm going to stitch this twice. And I'll repeat that for the other side. And just like with the lining fabric, I'm going to do a 3-inch boxed corner here, and I'll open those corners out and pin them in place. With our lining fabric, we had the seam pointing toward me. We'll do exactly the same thing for our main fabric. This will all make sense when you put the lining and main together again later. Now that we've got the corners ready for our main and our lining, we'll take them both to the machine and stitch those closed. And once again, because our main fabric is such a heavy fabric, I'm going to stitch this twice. Now we can trim off our corners. I've put my nice metal tag on the outside and I've got my fabric label on the inside. We can turn this back the wrong way round. When I've put my metal tags on, I've taken some of the remnants from the box corner and made a little washer the same size as that metal tab to put in between the tab and the fabric layer. It gives it a little bit of extra stability behind the plate. The double pocket section here is going to go to the back of my bag. The front is where the label is, and I'm putting my pockets on the opposite side. Line up the side seam. If you remember, the side seam was going in that direction earlier, and the same thing will happen with the other one. It will end up bringing the seams together in opposite directions. I always line up the side seams first and lock all the seams in place. And remember, with that one, I sewed the corners toward myself, and when I did the corners of the boxing of this one, I also sewed in toward myself, and that's why the seams are going in opposite directions. And by doing exactly the same thing on both lining and main, by bringing them together, it actually puts them in opposite directions. Make sure your handles are on the inside and line everything up. Now we haven't left an opening for turning through yet, so in between the handles on one side, we're going to leave an opening and clip everything else together. Where this opening is here, I'm going to do a back stitch at the beginning, go all the way around and back stitch again at the end. When I get to the areas where my handles are, I'm going to triple stitch over each of the 4 handle sections. Okay, just starting in the middle section of the back of the bag, I'll back stitch at the beginning, remembering to triple stitch over all the sections where my handles are, and then back stitch at the end. Okay, that's done now. Just stick your hand in there and pull your bag the right way round. Grab your outside fabric first. And then just poke out the corners on the bottom of your bag to make sure everything's going to sit nicely. Flatten out the side seams. And where the opening is just here, we need to fold that over on the edge there and on the lining, clip them together, and then we're going to top stitch around the entire edge. Okay, I've clipped the entire top of the bag together, and this is the section here where I've got my opening. I'm going to go and top stitch all the way around this edge at the top here. This step is optional. If you just want to close up the opening here, you can whip stitch that, and then you can avoid this step altogether. But the reason I'm actually doing a top stitch as well as the following 2 steps is because there's strength in seams. If I top stitch this now, then the lining and the fabric will never come apart, and when I do the fold over shortly, it's just going to add so much more strength. So it is 1 extra row of stitching all the way around, but I do like that extra strength in my bags. So I'm going to top stitch all the way around here now. When top stitching, have the outer part of your bag facing up, so you might want to turn your bag inside out. Depends on whether you've got the free arm on your machine or not. I don't. Mine's just a flat bed, so I do have to turn my fabric inside out. Whilst I've got this inside out, I'm just going to show you the wrong side of the bag. We've got that little swivel clip on the side here. That is actually so that we can attach another bag. This is a bag I did in a previous video, and it'll clip into place like this and just sit at the bottom of your bag. All right, if you want to know how to make that one, I'll pop a link in the description, and also up in the corner somewhere. And on the inside, whilst we're here, there's your zippered pocket, a huge zippered pocket there. And on the inside, again, we have our hidden welt pocket. So you can store your cash in there. Now, turn your bag the right way round. The last thing we need to do is fold the top edge of the bag over. Now, if you've pressed it earlier by 1 inch, then this step is a lot easier. If you forgot to do that, then just go and measure 1 inch from the edge and fold your fabric down. But we've already got this pressed. What you'll do is fold the outer fabric down, but at the same time, you need to take your lining and just push that away from the fold. We don't want the lining caught inside the fold here. So pull that away and clip it, and you do that all the way around. Just make sure the lining is away from the fold of the fabric, otherwise your lining will be too short inside your bag. And it's much easier if you've already gone and pressed your fabric earlier. With the handle, bring it up to the top, just fold it up and clip that into position, and you'll do that in all 4 sections. Now that that's been clipped in place all the way around, we can take this back to the machine. We're going to stitch along this bottom edge where we've already done our top stitching. So we're going to secure the whole bottom edge of that flap down, and make sure that you've got your lining away from that edge. And we'll also do a top stitch along the top edge of the fabric. We will have 2 rows of stitching about 3/4 of an inch apart. And it really doesn't matter where you start when you're doing this. I prefer to start on one of the side seams though. So the first row of stitching that I'm doing is just going over the top of the top stitching that I did earlier. And there's a lot of bulk in the area where the handle is. I'm going to triple stitch that. And once that first row of top stitching is done, I'm going to turn the bag the other way around and top stitch from the top edge. And there we have it. Our bag is completely finished. And this clip here, you can actually put that anywhere along the side. You can even put this in underneath your seams. If you want to have your keys hanging from the edge, sanitizers, anything like that, you can just have a couple of little clips hanging from the edge of your fabric. Lots of room inside as well. And with our 3-inch boxed corners, it gives us 6 inches across the base there, which opens the side edge out by 6 inches as well. Just makes for a nice, deep, wide bag. You can fit lots of things in there very comfortably. And if you made this one as well, that will just sit in the bottom of your bag like that. Well, here we go. I have made 2 bags, exactly the same, although I did actually not bother putting a clip on this one. So if I show you the bag inside out, you can actually make this as a reversible bag. You can have your zip on the outside there, or you can have it inside your bag, as I've shown you. With the pocket here, we've got a nice big zip, big, huge opening inside there. Then we have got that welt pocket on the inside as well, so that if you wanted to hide something, you could actually hide it in that tiny little pocket. We've got that clip on the side here. And this bag that I made in the last video will actually clip really well to the side of this one. So I've got the swivel on this bag, a D-ring on this one, pop those together, and that will sit inside the bag nice and comfortably. So inside the bag, you can see, can you see? I'm not sure. There's lots of room inside this bag. There's your deep pocket, and there's the little pouch that you can have on the inside. Clips in nicely on the inside there, sits at the bottom of the bag, and it's nice and secure. So if you wanted to make this little pouch to go with this bag, that's in the last video. I'll pop a link in the description box and up on the screen for you to check out. I'm going to sell these in the shop. I've gone and put my nice metallic labels on the outside. The link for those are in the description as well. And I've just put my regular shop label on the inside of the bag as well. So whoever purchases these are definitely going to know where they've come from. I think I'll price these out at $65 each. I'll see how they go. They're fully lined, having the extra pockets. I'm going to sell this separately, but I'll put a $65 price tag on these 2 bags. and see how they go. I hope you've enjoyed this video, and I shall catch you next time. Bye for now.